Fire Brigade proudly exhibit their latest firefighting appliance, capable of travelling at nearly 60 miles an hour.
So welcome back to the channel, everyone. And today it is officially 41 years since Dennis was registered, so it's Dennis's birthday. And the best way I thought to celebrate that would be to do a video about the history of Dennis, or at least the information I know of Dennis so far. So we'll start with that fact. It's believed that Dennis rolled off the production line potentially at the Dennis factory in Guildford, although there is no information to say which factory Dennis was actually manufactured at. We're thinking it's probably Guildford. What we do know, however, is Dennis was first registered on the 15th of November 1984, and the registration document simply says fire engine. Very creative. Dennis was then delivered to Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service, where it operated out of Windham Fire Station. Windham Fire Station out in the middle of nowhere. Sorry, people from Windham, but if people look on the map, you see it's quite a rural location. And again, looking at photographs of Windham Fire Station, you can see how it has changed over the time. The station itself hasn't changed, but the area outside the front of the station has changed a little bit over the time. In 1986, Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service, they undertook an advertising campaign to try and improve the number of on-call firefighters, or retained as they were called then. A retained firefighter then was, and as now, is someone who, they'll have another job, but when they're doing that job, they'll also have a pager on their belt. And the understanding is that when that pager goes off, they stop what they're doing, they will then race to the fire station and attend the incident. The film was hosted by Gordon Honeycomb. Now, Gordon was already a name known within the fire service because he wrote a book in 1976 called Red Watch, and this was all about the fire at the Wolseley Hotel in Maida Vale. And it's an incident where, tragically, firefighter Hamish Pettit lost his life. So the film, or the information film, it's based at Windham Fire Station and shows the life of an on-call firefighter. And the appliance they're riding? It's Dennis. Although during the film Dennis hasn't got the reflective stripes down the side as he has now, if you are good enough, you can usually manage to pause the film in a few places and actually see Dennis's registration. So we know for a fact it is Dennis. And the film discusses the benefits of being an on-call firefighter, both for the person undertaking the role as well as for the company who has agreed to allow them to be released to do it. Because it is quite a major undertaking for both parties involved. Because yes, you might be doing one job and literally have to just drop everything and go to the fire station. Which is going to impact on productivity for the company as well. So as mentioned, Dennis was stationed at Windham Fire Station, and from information from someone who works for Norfolk Fire and Rescue, is that Dennis was the appliance that would attend incidents in support of the Norfolk Fire and Rescue Control Unit. The vehicle you're seeing on the screen now is a modern version of the control unit used in Norfolk. So the control unit is a vehicle that would attend incidents to provide additional support for the incident commander, and generally this would only be larger type incidents. So again, being out in a rural area, it's possible that Dennis didn't see that much activity going out, and that's reflected in the fact that Dennis has got such low mileage, only 24,000 miles, so it hasn't gone great distances. But it's probably fair to say that Dennis did see his fair share of action and big incidents as well, because if he's going out with the control unit, that's the type of incident he's going to. One thing that is known but we don't have a date for is that it's without doubt that Dennis did save lives. In fact, some of the lives he saved were actually the crew that rode with him. Now, it's known that the cab that's on Dennis now is not actually the cab he left the factory with. Previously to Dennis's generation of vehicle coming out, so the older ones, possibly even the RS's, the cabs were basically just fiberglass cabs, And there is a significant amount of Dennis which is still fiberglass, but Dennis is known to have the safety cab. And what we can assume by that is that there is quite a bit of metal actually involved in the construction of Dennis's cab. Already I've seen the fact that the doors are metal. There are metal supports that go over the top for the roof. So that does make Dennis a bit stronger. So, as I said, known to be called the safety cab. And how has this saved lives? Well, at some point during Dennis's career, did have a tree fall onto the appliance and fall onto the cab of the appliance. And it was only because of that stronger design of cab that it actually allowed the firefighters to get out of the cab afterwards. Because of that stronger design, the crews managed to walk away. So what you're seeing on the screen now is from 2015, so 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, Dennis was used in Norfolk Fire and Rescue for the Fire Cadet programme. So these are generally young people aged between about the age of 14 and 17 or 18. Generally, the Fire Cadet programs, you age out at 18. You can obviously have other options after that point, one of which being join the service. But the Norfolk Fire Cadet program used to use Dennis as their appliance. So you can see Dennis here being used for that purpose. We know also that in 2019, Dennis was then sold from Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service to British Sugar at Cantley. And this is a common or fairly common thing for fire services to do. When the vehicles get towards the end of life, they do look for somewhere that they can go to rather than just literally going to scrap. Now, quite often fire appliances will go abroad to other countries, but in the case of Dennis, Norfolk Fire and Rescue were contacted by Cantley to see if they had an available vehicle, because the vehicle they did have, which was an old Dennis Sabre, it was dying, it was packing up, and they needed something quick, and Dennis was available. So they bought Dennis in 2019, and he did Trojan service at Cantley, being there or working there actually only for 3 years. He was replaced in 2022 with a MAN appliance. However, they did keep Dennis until 2024 as a training appliance, so that crews, people who come in to join Cantley and to work on the appliance, would use Dennis as their training vehicle. So in 2024, British Sugar sold off Dennis and sold it back to a person who used to work for Norfolk Fire and Rescue, part of their training staff. And I believe their intention was to restore Dennis, as I intend to try and do. But I'm just guessing that they never actually got the time to do so, because in 2025, at the beginning of this year, Dennis was then sold again to another individual who had the intention of actually converting Dennis into a camper van. That, as to whether or not I think that's a good thing or a bad thing, these vehicles, they're fire engines. They want to be fire engines. That's really what they should be. And we see examples of them being used as bars. That's okay as long as you're keeping the thing true to what it is. But when they start making adjustments, so making them a little bit like chauffeur-driven taxis and things, where they take the tank out and they put seats inside the vehicle, I think it loses the character. But he wasn't converted to a camper vehicle. He was left in a field, and the person obviously got to the point where they thought, well, they're not going to do it. So they advertised Dennis on Facebook Marketplace, and that, ladies and gents, is where I found it. Or I say I found it. Actually found by Laurie from Laurie's Mechanical Marvels, but I made contact with them, realised that it probably wasn't going to be a massive job to get Dennis back to some state of what he was, back to his former glory. So I know that was just a whistle-stop tour of the history of Dennis, but at the moment it's all I do know. I may well do a second history video, just confirming all those details. But as I said, because it was Dennis's birthday today, I thought, well, we'll do a little bit just on the history. and it obviously answers some of the questions I've been getting with regards to the question and answer session that I'm planning on doing. People asking, what do we know about Dennis and the history? So that's what we got. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the channel. Thanks for your support. Thanks for subscribing and liking. It does help. And let's see you on the next one. Bye for now.